Hi there, and welcome to the session on designing digital assessments using Google Forms. My name is Grant Crichton, and I will be delivering this for you today. So, a little bit of background on myself. I am a teacher of business education at secondary level. I've been using the Google for Education products now for 4 years, and I can safely say it's something that is really embedded in my practice. I think the tools are great for a number of different reasons. So right now, especially working from home, using things like Google Forms, we're able to assess pupil learning, provide that instant feedback to the young people, and also it gives me a chance to evaluate where the learners in my class are at, whether they complete that work at a time that suits them, or when we're on a live lesson. So a little bit of an outline on today's session is that we're going to look at using Google Forms to create assessments, both in the form of a more summative assessment at the end of a unit, or even the likes of a quick quiz that you might want to use during or at the end of a lesson. We will also look at how you would provide feedback to learners, how you would review submissions, and a little bit of data analysis. So we will get started with an example of a Google quiz. So before we do that, this is something you might want to use in class, even as a quick 5-minute filler task, or even a starter task, or to cover your success criteria at the end of a lesson. A Google quiz provides the learners with an instant score at the end. They can find out how many questions they got right. You can provide links to extra information for the questions they got wrong. So it really gives them that understanding of what they did right, but also what they need to do to improve for next time. So we'll get started on that now. Okay, so as we can see here, we are on a quiz which we can see is about geography. Now, before we go any further, I just want to draw your attention to down the bottom right. It says page 1 of 3. So that shows to us that, well, obviously there's 3 pages. We've not just got these 2 questions. So, what is the capital of Scotland? Edinburgh. Where is the Eiffel Tower located? We then click the next button, and funnily enough, that'll move us on to the next page. Okay, so the next topic here we can see is about history. And what year did World War II start? Now, I'm going to get this question wrong, and I'm going to put 1940. Okay? And what year did the Titanic sink? We'll get that one right, 1912. And again, next. How many sides does a hexagon have? 6. And 7 by 7. Again, let's get this one wrong, and let's go for 64. Okay? So we've put all our answers in. We click the submit button. And it says, well done, but it also gives us this link to view our score. So if we click that, what we will see opens is an overview of the quiz, all information on the one screen, and at the top, we've got our total points, 4 out of 6. So instantly, the young person who's completed this quiz knows there and then how many points they've got, what they've done right, and if we scroll down, we can find out what they've done wrong. So we scroll down, and the first question we've got wrong is in this subject here of history. And what year did World War II start? So we put 1940, but the correct answer was 1939. And as we can see, it says feedback, and we have a link. So what I'm going to do is open that link so that I can find out a little bit more information about the topic and find out why I got that wrong, why I didn't understand that already. So we click that link, and it takes us here to a page all about dates for the Second World War. Back to my results. Keep going down, I can find out I got this question right. My first question on maths was right. And again, I put a link in here so there's an option for the young person to find out the correct answer, but also they can then open a link to a calculator and they can go and do that calculation themselves, so they can really experience firsthand that yes, they know 7 by 7 is 49. So that is a really quick overview of an example of how you can use a Google form as a quiz and provide learners with instant scores, feedback, options to different links, and other ways that you can share information with them. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you how you create a quiz like that. We will go over all the basics of creating the form, turning it into a quiz, and like I say, providing things like feedback, links, and then we'll move on and look at extra information like reviewing the submissions. So, here we go. Okay, so as we can see here, I have made a very basic form and I've called it example quiz. So what I'll go over now is adding questions, adding things in like sections, and how we make that a quiz, how we make it self-marking, because that is what's going to be what we're looking for here. This is what's going to save us time and really make it something we can use in our day-to-day practice. So once you have opened up your form and you give it a title at the top, like I say, example quiz is my title, and I've called the file example quiz as well. We are going to add some questions in, so I will go over things like this, but adding a question, we just click this plus symbol at the right-hand side, and that gives us the space for a new question. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to use questions that we did on the quiz example. So the first question we'll go with is, when did the Titanic sink? Now, you've got different options here where you want your young person to answer the question. So at the right-hand side, we can see a drop-down box, and you've got all these options. I tend to go with multiple choice as a default, but that's not to say you couldn't go with like check boxes or drop-down. So multiple choice, it tells us here we have the option for option 1, and you just put in your date. So let's go with 1910, add option, 1911, add option, 1912, and finally 1913. So we've got a question there. Now, at this point, we have not made this into a quiz, so this is not going to be an option for us to tell the form which is the right answer. So in order to do this, what you need to do is go up to the settings wheel at the top right here, and you need to open that. Here we go. And if you go along to the right-hand side for the tab at the top and select quizzes, you then have the option to make this a quiz. So if we select that, now before you leave this screen, I would make sure that you've got this release mark immediately after each submission turned on, and that way, when a young person completes the quiz and hands it in, they can get that score straight away. If we turn that off, they're not going to get that score, which ultimately is going to remove a bit of the satisfaction for the young person who's completing this. When someone's completing a quiz like this, we know they want that answer, they want that instant feedback. So make sure we have that turned on. And click save. So now what we can do, we can see that this answer key option has appeared. So if we click on answer key, we can assign a point value to the question. I'll go with 1. And we can select which of the multiple choice options was the correct answer. In this case, 1912. All we need to then do is click the done. Okay, so at this point, we're ready to add a second question. Now, it's entirely up to you if you go and add a second question or if you maybe want to add in a section. So we can see on the right-hand side here where we've got our options for things like adding a question. At the bottom, we have the option to add a section. Now, adding a section, as we can see, gives us section 1 or section 2. Now, you might want to split your quiz up so that you're creating sections based on the different topics that you're assessing. So perhaps we're making a quiz which covers our learning for the week. So we want to do some math questions, and we want to do some English, we want to do a little bit of history, a little bit of geography, and that's entirely up to you to use these sections. So for the purpose of this, I am not going to have any sections. I'm just going to go with generic 1, 2, 3, 4 questions, and again, look at how we do things like adding the points values and adding answer feedback. So a second question we will go with will be, in what year did World War to start. Again, multiple choice, but we could change it. So why don't we go with checkboxes or drop down? And it looks the same. We've got the options of adding in different years. So we'll go with 1938, 1939, 1940, and 1941. So same as last time, we go to the answer key. And at this point, we assign a point value, 1, 2, however many you think it's worth, and then select the correct option. Done. Okay. Now, at any point when you're creating a form and you're using it as a basic form or you're making it as a quiz, if you decide that you want to have a quick look at how this would be seen by a learner in your class, what you can do is click this little eye at the top, and that will give you a preview of your form. We can see it opens it in a new tab, and it shows us how this looks. So we can see we've got 2 questions. We can see one's multiple choice, the second one's a drop-down option. And that way you can continuously just see how this is going to look, and it might highlight something you're not happy with. It might allow you to make changes as you go instead of getting to the end and having to go back over and do everything all over again. So back to our quiz. We'll add a third question. So so let's put in which city is the Eiffel Tower located. In which city is the Eiffel Tower located? Okay, now let's decide that we know that we've covered this in class, but we want to make sure that the learners are absolutely confident that they're answering the question about the right attraction. They're 100% sure that they're talking about the Eiffel Tower and not the Blackpool Tower. So what we're going to do in that case is add in a little picture just so that the young people can visualize what we're talking about. So on the right hand side here, where we have the options to add a question, we also have the option to add an image. Okay, now that's just next to the title of your question as well. So we're going to click that, and we're going to go to Google image search. Eiffel Tower. We will go with the first one that comes up. Click it, go to insert, and there we go. Where is the Eiffel Tower located? And we've got a lovely picture to show that to the young people. Okay, we still have to add our options, however, so we will go with London, London, Paris, Berlin, or Madrid. Okay, again, answer key. The correct answer for the Eiffel Tower is Paris, and we have to make it worth 1 point. Remember to make sure you do add in your points values, because it's something you could easily forget, in which case, yes, the young people will get the questions right, but they won't actually get a score at the end of it, and that would feel a little bit disheartening, I would imagine. So again, if we go and preview the form, we can see here how this would look. The Eiffel Tower is located, different options, and you've got the picture above it to remind the young people of where that is or what it is we're actually even talking about. Okay. So at this point, we have covered how you, first of all, get your form open, how you turn that into a quiz. That was over at the settings wheel, remember, quizzes. Once we've done that, we went over, we've added questions in. We have looked at assigning a points value. We've told the form which of these is correct answer. And now what we need to look at is how we can assign feedback. So when we completed our practice quiz on like this, as we worked through it, we looked at our answers and we had links to articles which supported the answer, which they supported the young person in providing a bit of extra information as to what the topic's about, where they can find that correct answer. So we're going to look now at how you add in that extra feedback. So when we'll go to the top of this one actually, and when we're in this design view, if you like, of the form, if we click our question and we go into the answer key, we have this option to add answer feedback. So if we go into the answer feedback option, what that will allow us is 2 different options, one for incorrect answers or one for correct answers. So I'm going to go down the road here of providing feedback to the young people who get the answer incorrect, and therefore they can go and they can further their knowledge on it a little bit and hopefully get the right answer. So in order to do that, what you want to do is click the little link button here, okay? And we have two different boxes. One, link to, and second is text to display. So what this is going to do here is allow us to put in a link to a website, but also how you want that to appear when the young person looks back over their answers. So let's go and find an article all about the sinking of the Titanic. So we'll go on to Google. When did the Titanic sink? Okay, so we've got this on Google here. We might want to find something that's got a bit more information. So this looks like it could be good. Okay, so let's say we're going to go with this article. So all we need to do here is copy that link and paste it in the feedback option. Okay, so that's the website that we're linking to. Now, this option here, text to display, allows us to put in something else so that the pupil or the young person doesn't have to see this massive long link. So we could just put in there, Titanic article, okay? Now at this point, the important thing to remember is we have to click the add button. If we don't click that, it won't put it in the way we want it to. So we click add and then we click save. Okay, so as we can see now, we have got feedback for incorrect answers, which is a link to the Titanic article. So you could also add in feedback for people who get the correct answer. So we open up back to the feedback box, and this time we go to correct answers, and you might just want to put something in there like, well done. A little bit of encouragement there, never does any harm. And we can see the two options we have there is that feedback for correct answers is well done, feedback for incorrect answers is to get a link to the article all about the Titanic so they can further that knowledge. Okay, so that is the basics on how you are going to take a Google form and turn it into a quiz. So it allows you, like I keep saying, it allows you to provide this instant score to the young people. It lets them see when they're doing things right and wrong, and like we've just covered, putting the feedback in so that they can learn more about a particular topic. With a form, it's entirely up to yourself, but you might want a young person to have multiple attempts at this to see if they're getting better after using all your feedback. So what you could do in that case is in the settings wheel, we can click this button that says limit to one response. Now, if that's turned on, they will literally have one shot and that is it. If it's turned off, they can repeatedly sit the quiz, look at your feedback that you're providing, and therefore hopefully get better every single time. Again, up to you how you do that. I would imagine that some people would like to use one response only when we know that it's a class test, for example, and we're only accepting their first response. If it's maybe something to support with revision or a little bit of a homework task or something a little bit more fun, then yeah, multiple attempts would be fine. Okay, so that would be your most basic of quizzes, something that can provide that instant answer and support the young person with moving forward. If anyone's got any questions, do you want to put them in the comments right now, and I will try and answer them as best I can before we move on. Okay, so we've got a question here, which is, can you have a quiz question using the paragraph answer option? So let's have a look at how we would do that. And we would add in a new question. Oops. I think we're up here now. So we've added in a question, and could we put a question like, describe so I'm going to use something from my subject here, but describe the different sectors of industry. Now, we could have a question like that, and yes, it allows us to use the paragraph or the short answer option. However, the issue here is that if we use something where we're really looking at assessing a full sentence from the young person, the Google form won't be able to instantly mark that as right or wrong. The Google form looks at matching criteria. So in terms of providing instant feedback, I would say it's most suitable when you have one particular answer that is correct. If we look at the Paris question, we had multiple choice options for that. If we had made this a text question, where is the Eiffel Tower located, the young person would have to type in exactly the response we give them. So why don't we just look at doing that now? Let's go on to our Eiffel Tower question, and if we go into the answer, whoops. It's not what I want to do, sorry. Okay, so if we add in a question, where is the Eiffel Tower located? Now, we could go with short answer, that is fine. Would help if I'd spelled located correctly though. That is fine, but when we go to our answer key, okay, we have to tell it the correct answer is Paris, and it will only accept an exact match to that. So, for example, if a young person came along and typed their answer in as Paris, France, the computer would not recognise that as being 100% a match, so it wouldn't award the point. So what you would have to do if you wanted to have text questions like that is you would have to go over and add in all the different options that you would accept. So it is possible, but a lot more time consuming for you to create, and there's more scope for the young person to perhaps put in something that doesn't match 100% correctly, even though they do understand the answer and they've got it right. I hope that helps. Okay, so as I said, that is going over the most basic use of creating a form as a quiz. So we're now going to go and look at how you would, first of all, review all the submissions. So the young people in your class have completed a form as a little homework task. They've all got their scores, but you as a class teacher want to look back over that. You want to see, right, how many people in my class are getting full marks on this, and those who are not getting full marks, where are they going wrong? So what we would do in that case is, I'm going to close this example and go back to the one that I sat earlier on. So this one here was all about geography, and I got 4 out of 6. So just bear with me. So what you want to do this, you want to go to your Google Drive and open the form back to the way it was when you created it. Now, at this point, you could add more questions in, but we're not going to do that. What we're going to do instead is click this tab at the top, which says Responses. Okay. Now, by opening the Responses tab, we can see a lot of information here, all about the young people who have answered the quiz, and like we say, how many things they're getting right, what they're getting wrong, and where these particular areas of either strength or areas they need to develop in are. Now, along the top here, we've got different options: summary, question, or individual. So we'll start by looking at summary, and that, just like it you would imagine, gives us an overall summary of the form and where pupils are picking up the marks. Now, you can see here I've completed this form a range of different times, and you've got all the different scores that I have received. So sometimes I've got 6 out of 6. The lowest I've got is 4 out of 4. So that gives you that overall view of all the different learners in your class and what scores they are getting. As we scroll down further, we can see question by question, the results are displayed in different formats. So for the first question, the capital of Scotland, it tells us here that 6 out of the 7 responses were correct. So 6 people knew the capital was Edinburgh, but someone thought it was Glasgow. Scrolling down, Eiffel Tower located, 6 knew it was Paris. Now, someone wrote Paris, France. So at this point, we can see that they do actually know it. It was just that the form marked that wrong because we hadn't put in that type of answer when we were marking the correct answers. So going back to that question, can you have a quiz question using the paragraph answer? You can, it's just a lot more tricky to actually have it set up properly. Next question, what year did World War II start? So as you can see, all these questions are being presented, different graphs, so we can see that we're getting some right, some wrong. Now, if we go back to the top, we have the options of question by question analysis or individual pupil analysis. So if we go to question by question, okay, you can see here it tells us 1 out of 6. That means we've got 6 questions and we're on the first one. You've got a drop-down menu to go through those different questions. So if we were to go straight to the Eiffel Tower question, we can see the different responses down here. So it tells us 6 people put the word Paris and therefore they got it right. However, one person here has put Paris, France, and the computer or the Google form has marked that as incorrect. So we have the option to override that here, which is really handy, by just clicking this little green tick, and there we go. We need to save that down the bottom. And we've now got 7 responses of 2 different options, Paris or Paris, France, but they're all marked as correct. So the only thing with this is that as much as, yes, we've went back over it, we've reviewed it, and we've now awarded that mark, when the young person submitted that quiz, their answer would have been marked as incorrect because we had it set on the type in the text answer in. So for the purpose of a quiz, personally, I would think you're much better using multiple choice, drop down, or even just one word answers so that there is less room for error. Now, back to the top again. As we said, we can go through the different questions, or we can now look at the individual responses. So we might decide we want to go and look at what pupil A put in. So we click on individual, and from the drop-down menu, we've got a range of different learners. Obviously, it's just me multiple times. So we'll click my third response, and we can see that this person here got it 6 out of 6. Scroll down. So this is the response that we've then changed to correct. So when I did it this time, I wrote in Paris, France, and automatically was marked as incorrect. But as a teacher, I've went back over that and I've awarded the mark. Okay, so that is Google Forms as a quiz. That is, I would use that, like I say, start of lessons, maybe even during lessons for a quick 5-minute break, both to give the young people in class something that they can get an instant answer on, a little bit of competition going, but also to give myself a little bit of a break, work out where I'm going next with things. Working from home, I think they're great. We know that pupils are all completing tasks at different times that suit them. So by having the option to add all this feedback in, the young person can complete that form. It might be at 8:30 at night because that is when it's working for them, but they're still getting that instant feedback. They're getting support with it and they're getting direction as to where they need to go to further develop their knowledge on it. So Google Forms, you can also use them as an assessment. So you might choose to do that as something that you do at the end of a unit. It might be more suited to someone as a secondary school teacher. So we'll move on now, and what we'll start to look at is how you would use Google Forms as an assessment. So that is going to be something that brings in a lot more of your paragraph answers, which will manually need to be marked by the teacher. So we'll look at how we would do that. So we have got a form here. This is one that I've made already. I'm going to go over it, and again, same process. We'll work through it, look at reviewing the answers and things like that. So what is the capital city of Scotland? Let's type in the capital city. Oops. Not having a good day typing today. Capital city of Scotland is, let's get this one wrong, Glasgow. Eiffel Tower is located in Paris. Again, just going through these questions and finding my answers as a quick example. World War II started in 1939. Titanic sank in 1912. And we'll get another one wrong. 7 by 7 is 55, we'll say. And again, submit. Okay, so as you can see here, straight away there's a difference. By having a form which requires sentence answers, we're not able to provide that instant feedback, that instant score to the young person who's completing the form. So that's why I feel these are much more appropriate as a summative assessment piece. We're using it as a formal assessment at the end of a unit. It might be something that we want the young people to work on in their own time, but we don't necessarily want them sharing their answers and things like that. So we do this, and then as a teacher, I have to manually go over this, review this, look at scores, and provide feedback. So what we'll look at now is firstly, how you would create this, and then secondly, reviewing the scores. So we can see here the form has been made already. Now, same as last time, it's a case of just opening your form, using the plus button on the right-hand side and adding all your different questions. Now, the important thing to notice is that it still has a total points at the top of 6, okay? So using the settings wheel for this, we can see that I have made this a quiz. However, what I've done is I've turned on the later after the manual review option in terms of releasing the mark. So this still allows me to assign points to the questions so that the young people can see how many points a question is worth when they're completing it. The only difference is they don't get that instant return, they don't get that answer, that score at the end. But sometimes that's just the way it has to be, and sometimes that's more appropriate so that you can go over it, you can mark it, and you can really decide if you would or you would not accept the response. Now, if you didn't have this as a quiz, we would not have the option to assign a points value to it. So the benefit of making this a quiz is simply that we can assign a number of points, and therefore when you're marking it, we can award marks to the young person and therefore return an official score. So it does give them that answer in the end and does give them that score after you've reviewed it. So what we'll do is we'll go and save this and we'll work through it. Okay, so we've made our quiz, we made our multiple questions. To assign our points, we simply click on the answer key again and type in or use the indicators to change the points. Now, you can add in the correct answer, like we said, but it will only award the correct answer if the pupil puts an exact match. So sometimes not going to really be appropriate. So in this case, I've just assigned a number of points and I'm clicking done. And you would do that all the way down over all your questions. As you can see, I've already done it. Each of these is worth 1 mark. So creating the form is very similar to any other form. The only difference is we made it a quiz using the settings wheel, and we turned on later after manual review. So let's imagine that the young people have completed this. They have had an assessment period in class. They've all submitted their answers. So now I want to go over it, do my marking, and find out how we're getting on. So I've went to my Google Drive. I've opened up the Google form, and I'm ready to go through it. So again, I click the responses tab at the top, and it takes me to the similar screen as what we had with the quiz. However, what you'll notice is this chart at the top shows us that both 2 of the respondents have got no marks. They've got everything wrong. But we need to remember that's only because we've not marked it yet. This information will all change as I go through and mark the form. So we scroll down and we can see an overview of the different responses we've got, which is fine, but now we want to mark them. So we go up to question, and you've got 2 ways you can mark. You might want to mark question at a time, that way we're getting more consistency with the marks we're awarding, or you might want to mark 1 pupil at a time. So I'm going to mark by question, and we'll start with question 1. What is the capital city of Scotland? And I can see that I've got 2 different answers. 1 is right, 1 is wrong. So really simple way of doing this is we just click the tick or the cross if the answer is right or wrong. So Edinburgh, yes. Glasgow, no. Click save, done. Really, really straightforward. We then use the arrows to progress to the next question. And again, this is easy because I only have 2 responses. But if you had a whole class of 20, it would obviously take a little bit longer. But again, we're still just using the tick and the cross to get either yes or no. The Eiffel Tower is located in Paris, so both responses had written the same sentence. So I'll give them both the mark. Tick, save, next question. Really straightforward. Again, World War II started in 1939. Both of my young people have answered the same thing. So yeah, have the mark. Save, move on. Again, getting a feeling we're working together here. You get the same answers, but yeah. Hexagon is 6 sides. So again, same answer, just different ways of writing it here. I'd give them both the mark. So yes, yes. Save. Final question. So we can see again, 55 is incorrect. So I'll hit the cross, 0 marks. 49 is correct, so I'll give the tick. Now we have the option here. You might want to add in a little bit of feedback. So manually, you can click add feedback and just type in here. The correct answer is 49. Okay, and that'll give that feedback to that young person. They will therefore see why they got it wrong, what the correct answer is, and they'll know for next time. Save. So we've went through all 6 questions, we've marked all responses. Let's go back to the summary. And we can see now that one got 4 and one got 6. Okay, so that is a very quick session anyway on how we can be using Google Forms as an assessment tool. So both in the format of a quiz, which can be self-marking, or as a more structured assessment piece, which actually requires that manual teacher review. I hope you found it useful. If there's any questions or anything, feel free to put them in the comments section right now, and I can, like I say, do my best to answer them. And if you don't have any questions, then yeah, I hope that you learn from it, and I hope you're able to use this to support you in your own practice. Like I say, I use Google Forms. I would honestly say nearly every single period that I teach. I just think they're a great way to start a lesson, finish a lesson, or gauge a bit of understanding on the class as a whole. Thanks very much for joining, and I'll take a couple of minutes just to look at the comments in case anything comes in. Thanks. So there's a question here, for formal assessments, is it better to set up a rubric to inform the marking scheme? So that would be moving on to your next level of using all the different Google products together. Personally, I do think it's a great way to do it. It allows you to have that straight area of going to and looking at all your different information. I know there is a session on that today. So if you're at that higher level of using Google Forms as an assessment tool, then I would definitely recommend looking at that and seeing how you can further your knowledge on it. Okay, that's a good question there. So Lizzie, you said, when making a quiz, it didn't show me email addresses for responses. So I couldn't mark as I wasn't sure what pupils' responses I was looking at. Was unsure how this happened. So what I think that would be, I will just go over this right now. When you have made, here we go, you've made a quiz, you're in the settings wheel. Now, we use the quizzes tab to make it a quiz, but in the general section, you need to make sure you've got collect email addresses turned on. Now, your authority would also usually have this option here, requires sign-in, in which case you can limit it to your authority. So you could limit it to people who are within your local authority, your organisation. By having that turned on, when we come to review the responses, we're able to see the different email addresses. So yeah, that would definitely be something that would support you in knowing who's completing your quiz or who's completing your form. So again, you go to the settings wheel, general, collect email responses. Mr. Lynch, thanks. I just saw your comment there. Lizzie, I hope that answers your question. If there's anything else you want me to go over, honestly, just say and I'll do my best to help. You're welcome. Okay, I'm going to end the broadcast there, and thanks for joining.